Chair, and I'll recognize myself for questions. Chief Beeson, Director Allen, I mentioned in my opening statement a sophisticated drive-through operation that was recently broken up in Cochise County, Arizona. According to press accounts anyway, looks like they successfully smuggled large quantities of drugs through Arizona for years, not days or weeks or months, but for years before they were actually caught. And these drive-through operations are something that I hear from my constituents and border residents often about. We've seen encrypted communication, special code words, other tactics to avoid detection. The last breach that I personally saw on the border was where they used pretty sophisticated blowtorch and welding equipment to be able to cut through basically a gate in the barrier with hinges. So they were able to prep that in advance through their spotters and scouts. They knew when they weren't going to be detected or where they weren't going to be detected. If you actually went by it, you wouldn't be able to see the breach. But then at the time and place that they're choosing, they open it up, put the ramp, drive through, shut it, and go through essentially undetected. So just giving that case study of them being able to conduct these operations for years in Cochise County, do you think this is the level of sophistication is like the new, the new par for, this is the new normal for cartel operations? Are there additional tools or authorities that we need to give you in order to detect and interdict these types of operations so they don't go on for years before they're detected? And I congratulate them being rolled up and number being prosecuted right now, but what can we learn from it? And do you need any additional tools or authorities, Chief?
So we do have this phenomenon, if you will, of the drug trafficking organizations and their smuggling, and they certainly are very sophisticated in their approaches. They have the benefit of time, and so they've got plenty of time to wait to seek the right opportunity to engage in their illegal activity. They use scouting networks, as you have mentioned. They utilize encrypted communications. They're utilizing, of course, these vehicles, sometimes very rudimentary. A vehicle looks like a car carrier, and then they just use it to ramp over the fence. For us to combat that, we are continuing to work on situational awareness, making sure that we are improving our detection capabilities along the southwest border. Very critical for us to continue to engage with our law enforcement partners, certainly with Homeland Security investigations, to make sure that we are all sharing the same information, know about who the networks are, who's operating in the area, and then, of course, getting information from the intelligence community that's going to provide us with the pre-event intel so that we can take action against these folks as they're...
And are there any, I know we've been out there visiting, are there any additional tools specifically related to, or authorities related to intercepting or cracking the encrypted comms? Or, we introduced a bill last Congress related to the scouts, that oftentimes when you roll them up, you can't prosecute them for anything unless you can tie them to a specific drug load. So we made that a federal crime. It didn't make it into law, but we're going to keep pushing that issue. But are there any additional tools or authorities you need in order to get out in front of their decision loop and their techniques?
So we have had some success against scouts, as you mentioned. We have been able to prosecute some of them. It does require some effort, right? I mean, good solid police work to sit there and investigate and do that, and we're certainly happy to do that and do that very well, I think. And we've been having what I think is a really good relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office in terms of being able to present these cases and for them to take a prosecution on individuals that really don't have any narcotics with them, but they're still able to prove conspiracy and take those cases. We're going to continue to plug away on technology, certainly on the tactical infrastructure, the barriers, and we need to keep applying those things to really improve the situational awareness that we need along the border.
Mr. Allen?
The one thing I would add to Chief Beeson's picture there is the foreign piece. There was a very good example last year, just south of your district, or in your district, but on the Mexican side, where by having a good relationship with our Mexican counterparts, we were able to make sure that the border was not actually a barrier. And when we had information about a failed drive-through or a drive-through that had been thwarted, we were able to cue Mexican law enforcement to go and take law enforcement action on the Mexican side. And I think that's another piece that we need to continue to work on to make sure that, when we do develop intelligence about a drive-through, you know, we can, if we can't action that on the U.S. side of the border, we can action it on the Mexican side.
Great. Can I follow up on that? In all of your testimony, most of your testimonies, you talked about better coordination with authorities in Mexico, yet endemic corruption, you know, through their government and law enforcement. How do you balance those two and cooperating but not tipping them off related to the elements of corruption that would be involved in your partner agencies?
I'll start on that, and some of it, you know, first of all, you have to go in with your eyes wide open, and you have to, you know, acknowledge right up front that corruption is a challenge. But some of it comes down to who you talk to and where and at what level of government. Our best relationships are often in Mexico City, away from the border. And as an example, to kind of demonstrate how important that can be, last year, HSI and CBP and state and local law enforcement authorities in Arizona did a somewhat unprecedented operation in which we identified targets in northern Sonora that we had indictments on in the United States and we wanted to go get. We enlisted the support of the Mexican Federal Police and got them to send more than 100 law enforcement officers and stage on the U.S. side of the border in Arizona and conduct, frankly, an air mobile assault into Mexico from the United States, fully armed, coordinated amongst all the U.S. agencies from the State Department through all law enforcement, very successfully, and was not compromised because we worked with, you know, U.S. trained, U.S. vetted law enforcement units that made that possible. And I think that's the way we want to continue to move.
Great, thanks. I'll have another round of questions, but my time's